sermon in our Season of Creation series. And today we're looking at the consequences of lifestyle. There's going to be two aspects of the service. I'm going to start by considering the environment. I think the environment is spoken. We often hear people telling us that we need to care for creation. The truth is, though, that the planet is very capable of caring for herself. The planet heals herself when she's wounded. For example, if all humanity was suddenly to disappear, like you sometimes see in the jungle in the Amazon or something, nature recovers, she restores herself. What we need to do more is to care about what is happening to the planet through us. We need to care that we are producing excessive amounts of carbon, air pollution, and plastics that are choking the oceans, the air, the environment. We need to care about the effects on vulnerable communities as well as vulnerable species. When we start to care about what is happening to our earth, to our planet, to all creation, we inevitably end up needing to examine ourselves and our own lifestyle. Because if we do this honestly, we'll be motivated to campaign against ourselves, to reduce our own sinfulness, to reduce our insatiable greed, our uncontrolled desires, our own selfish demands on the planet, and of course on other people. And so the theme of this week, the consequences of lifestyle, challenge us to care about what is happening and about examining how our lifestyle might need to change. And the events of recent times, especially the last week, have brought in the second aspect, but it's an aspect that still speaks to the same track. We need to care for humanity. We cannot love and care for our environment unless we first care for and love God, because all love comes from God, and then we need to love and accept ourselves, because only then can we start to accept and love other humans, and only then can we really start to love all creation. And all of our readings support this approach of looking at both the environment and humanity. Our reading from Jeremiah is so profound, apart from that famous potter and clay bit, which I think we normally attach to. It moves on to a very challenging sentence, very challenging time. And if we look around in our environment, anyone except the person who most buries their head in the sand can see that we are damaging the environment. Droughts and floods are clearly getting worse through our actions. I've only been on this planet 50 odd years, and I can see the difference. The evidence is really clear to most of us. And this effect on the environment is also having a profound effect on humanity, especially the poorest of the poor. Our psalm reminds us that we are formed as part of the wonderful web of life. All great religious traditions remind us of the simple truth, and it's clearly indisputable. Humans are part of and dependent on creation. Philemon reminds us, as Paul exhorts us, to care for our sisters and brothers, and that includes all creation. We depend on our environment as much as we depend on each other. And in Luke, Jesus is clearly calling us to radically change our lifestyle, to proclaim the gospel in a way that invites us and others to not only talk about the gospel, but to live the gospel. Always proclaiming it, but only when necessary, using words. And this challenge to love others, even our enemies, as well as caring for creation, shouts out through our gospel reading. I then come to ask you, what was your initial reaction to the news of the hateful attacks and rapes on women, as well as foreigners this last week? I found it simply devastating. And The first unredeemed primal response we might have to those who are different to us, those who don't adhere to our code, be they the other, the people we don't like, or be they the people who do these despicable acts, we start to imagine them as the other. And then we project all our despair, all our frustration, all our rage, all our demons into them, so that we can hate them, rob them, rape them, abuse them, molest them, kill them. But I believe what hurts and crucifies God the most is how the admittedly appalling actions of the rapists, the plunderers, the abusers of foreigners and or women are not met with Christ-like love, but with an equally hateful response of vigilantes, people calling for the death penalty, people declaring all men to be pigs. We all fall short. We are all sinners. And as our gospel reading challenges us, we're all called to love extravagantly. We are called not to hate the other while denying our own inadequacies. Popular choices of others seem to be children, women, men, Boers, English, Jews, Nazis, gays, homophobes, murderers, death penalty supporters, rapists, chemical castration supporters, child molesters, or whoever we hate. We go so far as to implement policies like apartheid, concentration camps, extermination camps, prisons, death row, genocide. I remember the outrage that was expressed at a service when the last waves of xenophobia ravaged our country. And we were all invited to pause and reflect on what society had done, what we had done systematically and unjustly over long periods of time to so damage and so dehumanize the perpetrators of these atrocities that they could go and so hurt those who they perceived as inferior to themselves. So often when we are cruel to others, it's because people have been cruel to us. We become less than human in our own minds because of the way we've been treated, and then we go and lash out at others. I'm not defending these atrocities, but indeed, perhaps we are invited to acknowledge that these atrocities are in all of us. All of us have the potential to be evil. All of us have sinned and fall short. And we are asked to be compassionate towards the perpetrators, forgiving them as we ask for forgiveness ourselves too, without belittling the consequences that need to follow the acts that they have done. But we need to meaningfully engage on the root causes of the situation together. And this, I believe, is exactly what God is calling us to do. This is and always has been our vocation as Christians. When we call for the death penalty, for chemical castration, for ruthless, hateful responses, are we not being as guilty as those who we are objectifying as evil? The problem is objectifying people as evil, as wrong. Are all men pigs? Let him who has not sinned cast the first stone. God is in all of us, potentially. God can redeem all of us. The challenge for us as Christians is, I believe, to show and invite others that they may see there is another way, that they may then choose life. And then we can show and invite others to also firstly see and then choose life, because we can all be redeemed, but only through the love of God, through me, even through me, and even through you. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My conclusion to the sermon that I prepared about care for the environment, is applicable not only for care of our planet and God's creatures, but also for care of our fellow human beings. The needs are huge, but the principle is this. Start with what breaks your heart, and then find an action that you and maybe your family and friends can do. Inspire others, join networks. Research tells us that transforming change comes when networked individuals change. Don't be afraid. God is with you. But I have a new conclusion. I'd like to share something by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, an American poet, post-trauma specialist, and Jungian psychoanalyst, author of Women Who Run with the Wolves. She writes, "My friends, do not lose heart. We were made for these times. I've heard from so many recently who are deeply and properly bewildered. They are concerned about the state of affairs in our world now. Ours is a time of almost daily astonishment and often righteous rage over the latest degradations of what matters most to civilized, visionary people. You are right in your assessments. The luster some have aspired to while endorsing acts so heinous against children, elders, women, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, is breathtaking. Yet, I urge you, I ask you, to gentle you, to please not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Especially, do not lose hope. Most particularly because the fact is that we were made for these times. Yes, for years we've been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. She writes, I grew up on the Great Lakes, and I recognize a seaworthy vessel when I see one. Regarding awakened souls, there have never been more able vessels in the waters than there are right now across the whole world. And they are fully provisioned and able to signal one another as never before in the history of humankind. Look out over the prow. There are millions of boats of righteous souls on the water with you. Even though your veneers may shiver from every wave in the stormy toil, I assure you that the long timbers composing your prow and rudder come from a greater forest. That long-grained lumber is known to withstand storms, to hold together, to hold its own, and to advance regardless. In any dark time, there's a tendency to veer towards fainting over how much is wrong or unmended in the world. Don't focus on that. There's a tendency too to fall into being weakened by dwelling on what is outside of your reach, by what cannot yet be. Don't focus there either. That is spending the wind without raising the sails. We are needed. That is all we can know. And though we meet resistance, we more so will meet great souls who hail us, love us, and guide us. And we will know them when they appear. Didn't you say you were a believer? Didn't you say that you pledged to listen to a voice that is greater? Didn't you ask for grace? Don't you remember that to be in grace means to submit to the greater voice? Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world, will help immensely. It is not given to us to know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip towards an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts adding, and adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first or the second or even the 100th gale. One of the most calming and powerful actions that you can do to intervene in our stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Souls on deck shine like gold in dark times. The light of the soul throws sparks, can send up flares, build signal fires, cause proper matters to catch fire, to display the lantern of soul in shadowy times like these, to be fierce and yet to also show mercy to others. Both are acts of immense bravery and the greatest necessity. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. If you will help to calm the storm, this is one of the strongest things that you can do. Of course, there'll be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life. But I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. The reason is this. In my uttermost bones I know something, as do you. It is that there can be no despair when you remember why you came to earth, who you serve, and who sent you here. The good words we say and the good words we do are not ours. They are the words and the deeds of the one who brought us here. In that spirit, I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbour and moored, it is safe, there can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships were built for. And through many dangers, toils and snares I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. The Lord has promised good to me, his words my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Amen.
Amen.